I believe, and I will believe it until the day I stop doing nothing personal, I believe there was intervention in the Carlos Correa deal. Why do I believe that? Carlos Correa had a deal with the San Francisco Giants, announced, done, everything's great. Then there was a disagreement over his physical, and the Mets signed him immediately. Do you remember 10 days ago when they gave him all that money? What was it, Coca? $315 million for 11 years? And then all of a sudden, the Mets give him a physical. Guess what the Mets haven't done yet? Announced it. We went live on the air and we talked about it for a couple of days. Carlos Correa is not a Met. He hasn't signed with the Mets. He is still a free agent. Guess what Scott Boras has been doing between Christmas and New Year's, between sipping Molotov cocktails on the beach in Fiji? He's been calling 29 teams, even the Marlins. Hey, I got Correa. It's not done with the Mets. I just need $315 million. Trust me, the physical's fine. You can do your own. Guess what all the teams have said? No thanks. But wait, Minnesota, you wanted him. You had him last year. You made the next best offer. We'll bring him to you. 10 years, 300, he's yours. No merci. Scotty, how about 1 year, $30 million? No way. I'm not doing that again. I got to get him his long-term deal. Scott Boras has a problem, folks. The problem is nobody else wants him. He had Steve Cohen ready to roll because Steve Cohen said, this is the last guy we need. We're over the hump now. We're World Series champions. I'm a size 8. I don't think that's accurate. I don't know what size his finger is. I've never seen his finger. I've never put a sizer around his finger. God, that was fun sizing people for their World Series rings. Steve, one day you'll do it. Maybe. Come on. We got to get him. We're going to win the World Series with him. Scott then says, but who cares about his physical? It's just an injury from years ago. He hasn't missed time for this injury. He misses time for other injuries. But Scott, why can't we negotiate more provisions, different provisions? We have a real issue happening right now with the Mets because Steve Cohen doesn't want to do the contract as is. Scott Boras will only do the contract as is. Steve Cohen has already gotten his fan base lathered up that they're going to get Correa over the hump, win it. You don't think there was intervention from the commissioner? I've been around it. I've watched the commissioners intervene. Yes, I have. And here's how it goes. Steve, you're not signing Correa to that deal. Why not, Rob? Because I promise you, you'll live to regret it because it's not a good deal. Are you going to threaten me, Rob? I'm not going to say I'm going to threaten you. I'm going to let my minions in the Labor Department threaten you. I've got plausible deniability. I'm merely saying to you, it doesn't look good for the industry. Owners are upset. Do you remember what happened when all the owners were upset with Daniel Snyder or Robert Sarver? Do you remember what happened? Bye-bye, franchise. But, Rob, I could get $7 million for the Mets right now. That'd be terrific, Steve. Am I suggesting that the commissioner's office would force or the owners would force Steve Cohen to sell? You're goddamn right I am. When you've got a lone wolf, that animal, person, thing needs to be disappeared. Owners don't like it when one of their own turns on them. They don't like it when one of their own does something to make them all look bad. There are exceptions to the rule. The exceptions are the San Diego Padres, embarrassing to other owners what they're doing, making other small revenue teams, low revenue teams, small market teams look bad. But they're good. They always learn from their mistakes and they rip it apart after they don't win. Not sustainable. Everyone acknowledges that. Let him go. We're going to give him enough rope so we can hang. Done. That's an unfortunate expression, actually, which I've used to use all the time. I'm going to give people enough rope. I used to say that my management style, side note here, Coca, I used to say that my management style was to give people enough rope to either climb to the top of the mountain or to hang themselves. And that is a very unfortunate way to look at it. My management style, to put it a different way, but it means the same thing, but I'm always going to put it a different way, is I want to give people enough area in which to work that they can show me whether or not they can excel at their job. And I'll be able to know very quickly whether they can. You only know, if you meddle too much and you do the work of your employees, how the hell do you evaluate them? Like when an owner says, oh, that player's good, that player sucks. Well, if you don't keep track of what your scouts say, how do you sign your scouts? How do you know who's good? It's totally crazy when you think about it. Any other management style than I had seems crazy. And that sounds totally narcissistic, but it's not. It's not like I know more than anybody else or I'm smarter than anyone else, but doesn't that make the most sense? You can only evaluate somebody if they do their damn job. I have no idea why we just went on that side. I don't even know what we were talking about. Oh, no, don't have it, Coca. Can we rewind? I mean, I want to keep this in the show, but I literally don't know where we were. Were we talking about, owners. Owners letting Steve Cohen. That's what we were talking about. Thank you, Coca. So they let the Padres do what they do. They don't want to let Steve Cohen continue to act this way because he's creating a divide that is so much bigger between what their team is and what his team is. The Dodgers, the Yankees, they never thought that they'd be looking up at a team so far. The Royals, the Guardians, the Marlins, they never thought they'd be looking at a gulf that large between large market teams. So what I think is happening is that Steve Cohen has to decide for himself what he's going to do, because there's nothing the commissioner can do, right? He cannot sign the contract. Remember, the commissioner's office has final approval of every contract. So even if Correa passes a physical, sort of, even if Correa and Boris and Steve Cohen have an agreement that they're going to take $2 million off the guarantee but keep it 11 years, but 313 instead of 315, the commissioner's office has to approve that. But I've never seen the commissioner's office not approve a contract. That would be a grievance that is not winnable with the Players Association. You've got to have a better reason than, hey, he's spending too much money. You have to have a better reason than, hey, I think he's going to get hurt. None of that is good enough. So the commissioner would have to approve it. But then what happens next? The commissioner has very much plausible deniability when all of a sudden owners are biting at each other. What else could Steve Cohen do when faced with this situation? Well, when we were talking about the show last night and this morning, our producer, Matthew Coca, came up with a very smart thought. One way that Steve Cohen can operate in Major League Baseball and continue to do whatever he wants is to make sure that Steve Cohen's not the only person in Major League Baseball who wants to operate the way Steve Cohen operates. And there's opportunities with so many teams for sale. You've got the Angels for sale, the Nationals for sale. You've got the Orioles for sale, very likely. If someone would offer 1.2, you've got the Marlins for sale. I promise you that, no matter the protestations of their owner, Bruce Sherman. What happens if Steve Cohen can go to his little club and say, hey, come with me, buy a team, it'll be great, we'll all operate like lunatics, we'll sign everybody, we won't care about the commissioner, as a matter of fact, we'll be our own commissioner, we'll do a super league. You think that super league is an only concept that John Henry was interested in the EPL? You think that he doesn't think about a super league in Major League Baseball? You think that the owners of these teams wonder to themselves, what do we need the Guardians, Marlins, and Rays for? I sure as hell don't want to get beaten by the Rays in my division. You don't think that comes up? Then you're just naive. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Carlos Correa, but something's got to give, because at some point Correa is going to say to Boris, I need a paycheck.